thought I'd talk a bit about Star Wars very briefly, and Star Wars fans and canon and the weird effects of nerd media as it kind of moves from person to person and big corporation, blah blah fucking blah. Point is, I think Star Wars is sort of interesting because what happens with Star Wars is you have a series of films, it goes away, and then lots and lots of people who are probably fans of those films get deals and writing jobs, and they write novels, comics, video games, and they expand on all the stuff those films did and explain all sorts of bits and pieces. And that's generally not successful. Like, I mean, it's successful, but it's not film successful. These are nowhere near as big as the films, nowhere near as important. Like, it's just for the fans. Um, and then eventually they decide to make some new films, and those films are for people who liked those original films, you know, kids who have seen them, or just people who recognise the brand. They're not for the people who are reading all these novels, comics, playing all these games. And those people get really upset. Like, I'm not saying the prequels or the sequels are good movies. Like, that's not my point. My point is, you know, to me, that's irrelevant whether you think which ones are good and which aren't. To me, my point is a lot of dislike comes because, oh, this ruined my canon. This ruined the canon. And yeah, that noise back there, that's my dog. So what happens is you get something like the first Star Wars, where I think Lucas was just kind of like, I want samurai knights, cowboys, space adventure, World War II, that sort of thing. I want it all here. And the justification really isn't that important. Like, my dad would look at Star Wars and go, that's stupid, it looks like it's for children. I'm not interested. Because why are lightsabers even a thing? Like, everyone should practically be using guns. So he's like he's not like I only watch The Wire, but he's like, you know, he likes stuff like The Boys. He's liked a few anime I've shown him, but he's not interested in that, like The Hobbit, The Lord of the Rings, Star Wars, that sort of thing. So yeah, he'd just go, that's silly. And I think the thing is, what happens with Star Wars is, yeah, it is silly. What happens is, after that silliness, they kind of try and sort of explain it, like the Force and Luke being able to just block bullets, which I don't think he actually does until I think that first happens in, was it, I'm trying to remember the third movie. That's my status as a Star Wars fan. Like, I'm like one of those guys who's like, I like this stuff, but I don't care that deeply. Like, I've only seen most of the films once, apart from the original trilogy, and I think I've seen Phantom Menace twice. Uh, Return of the Jedi, yeah, I think that's the first time you see him in combat, like, against people with guns with a lightsaber, like, blocking bullets and stuff like that. Um, yeah, because it's like, well, we need to explain why he doesn't just get shot to hell. And I made this tweet because someone was complaining about how some cartoon now had a goofy looking, like, umbrella saber. Like, it was a massive thing with multiple lightsabers attached, like some huge sword club thing. I can't. And for all I know, it could look awesome in the show, or it could look kind of silly. Who knows? I haven't seen it. I don't think it's even out. It's just a picture. Someone was like being upset about it. I was like, it's my dad would just say lightsabers as a whole are silly, but it was interesting to look through the replies and realise all these people talking about canon and saying, well, actually in canon, Mandalorians use shotguns to fight Jedi, and I'm like, when did that happen? Because I do not know about this vast history of Star Wars canon. And then someone saying, well, actually, that's no longer canon. That's not canon. And I'm like, when was this not canon? Because I know they deleted tons from the canon when the prequels came out. I know they did it again with the sequel. Like, the thing is, I think why Star Wars fans have this super emotional response to these films is often you do get people who are really into the canon. And the thing is, the movies are so disconnected, and so, all the stuff besides the films, and I guess the TV shows after Clone Wars, you know, all that stuff was kind of not really for normal people. It was for a weird niche. Like, I absolutely can believe that there's probably my dad's question is probably answered, because there probably is like a Star Wars story starring a Jedi who was like, yes, I'm not interested in lightsabers, I'm like dual wielding pistols and like flipping through the air, gunning people down like that. Um, Maybe Disney has declared it non-canon now. Maybe it was the prequels just made it non-canon. I don't know. Point is, it's, you know, it's someone saying that like they use shotguns on Jedi, and never saw that in the movies. But like, ah, yeah, that probably happened. Because I think, like I said, you know, people come up with their own excuses to sort of try and make all this world sort of make more sense, I guess. And movies come along and they're like, yeah, these aren't for you guys, I'm sorry, we're gonna have to move all that away. And eventually they get used to it and a new crop of fans comes in with these movies, and then the next lot of movies comes along, like it's happened twice now. And I mean, it's happened more times. I remember people being upset about the Clone Wars, because I read some like nerdy blog and someone was upset because it had broken like Ahsoka or whatever had broken like the canon on how Jedi training was done. Like, Ahsoka shouldn't be a Jedi because I've read this book about young Jedi and this clearly contradicts it. um, yeah, so I think that's why Red Letter Media is the only, like, I guess I'd say major success story of someone who got big complaining about Star Wars. I'm sure there's probably more. I'm just thinking they seem like the main example, and I think that's because when they reviewed Star Wars movies and complain about Star Wars movies, they don't complain about the canon. In fact, they tell people to shove off. It's sort of interesting, because I remember Plinkett would repeatedly bring up, like, don't go into comments and complain about how it's explained in this novel, or I don't care about the games, books, comics, Universal theme park events, skywriting, you know, something someone said in an interview which is now in the wiki, etc. Like, what matters is the movie. And I think that's why he probably has sort of expanded, been more successful in expanding into other stuff based on complaining about Star Wars, because he wasn't really complaining about Star Wars for Star Wars fans.